Fáilte arás ga chéine. Tá muid an seo tá sé go hálan a muig an foiineog an wineog an seo. Tám I minéidir agus tá tá achas orm. A bheith live. So we're here in Bin Aider in Hoth, um, where basically I am running for local government. So in the elections on June 7th, if you live in the Hoth Malahide or even the Hote Malahide area, I ask you for your vote to get me on the council. And this is going to be about why. Um, and yeah, my name is Jamie McGlue. I'm running as an independent, and basically, I like people, I like logic, I like humor, and I like things kind of working and working for everyone in a fair way. So that's what I'm about. I'm going to run through a few specific policies. Um, but first of all, I think to really convey this, I have to break out into song. Okay, so if you'll excuse me. We're here, God put us on the planet for beer and sandwiches and life and cartwheels and everything. Taking the wheel and feeling so good and free, so happy like the little honeybee who's working away, feeling free in harmony. Don't you have to say that it is love? So that's a little song about you and me, who are the figurative honeybees, laboring here in the hive of Earth to make something delicious, nutritious, and golden. Um, so let's see. Basically, okay. So first up, I'll just say a lot of people think, okay, local politics doesn't really matter, and you're more or less correct, sort of. But I think uh, something that for those people, I would say I am getting into. Well, I am. The plan is to get elected to the Dáil, right, the national parliament at the next election. So I'll be running as an independent, potentially Gaelic Awakening, which is the movement I've started, and a lot of things are in flux and within my life and in the world, but definitely that movement of like bringing awakening to Ireland, I'm completely devoted to, and under whatever name, my whole life will be that, and but the we'll see, like politically what makes sense. I think need to be a bit flexible. Things are evolving, but for now, I'm running as an independent for the local election, and we'll see about the national one. For sure, I'll be running under some sort of wonderful political umbrella. Um, so yeah, so now for that, so becoming a counselor will boost my voice. It'll boost my credibility, and so that hey, I would like to talk to you, Mr. Journalist Man, about these issues, which are then, going to maybe require the kind of political class and journalistic class to actually engage in debate, where we can figure out what's really going on and what should be going on. That's what we need. We need more debate, and we need more listening and more true communication, right? And from there will flow the solutions to the million problems we have, right? It all begins with awareness, and awareness comes through, the logos, through conversation, through debate. This is what our whole society is built on, the West, through, reason. And so help me, help us all, right? If I can, even if I can just run and get, be quasi successful in my run for the Dáil, that will, put pressure on, people to talk about the elephants in the room, and then that will have many benefits. So if you can, if you're in the Hoth Malahide area and you can support me as an independent for local government, just go vote June 7th. Oh, Jamie McGlue, sure. Then that's going to make it give me a louder voice. And more legitimacy to try to change the system from the inside. And I want to do this all with like I was just at Fingal, um, so it's Fingal County Council, right? I'm looking for a seat on Fingal County Council under the Hoth Malahide um, electoral region. That's my electors. Um, and so yeah, I was there and I was talking to them. They're all lovely people. And as I was saying to one of the ladies there, so shout out to Sarah, was that, like I feel like I like to see things from everyone, from every side. And I see no harm in that. Worst case scenario, you go, okay, I see how you see it, and oh, it looks pretty foggy. I think there's a bunch of blurry things on these glasses, and you should maybe I'll find you a cloth so you can clean them. A cloth of critical thinking, so you can clean the glasses of your perceptions. Um, but there's no harm in that. It's very good that you can connect with people more. So I think, to my discredit, right, until recently, there was this kind of a bit of an antagonism against all these. I feel a lot of bad things are going on in our society. The COVID situation, I feel, is very unfair and very unhelpful, the way it was handled by the government. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's many other things. Um, and so there's a little bit of resentment there. And so what I'm doing now, I'm doing my best to kind of let go of that and just be like, look, we're all human beings. We've all got our experiences and our angles. And here's the thing, as I say in my flyer, which I'm going to show you in a moment, basically, we all want what's good for ourselves, good for our family, good for our friends, good for our communities. Now, how you define communities, that's what makes this true. Some people might exclude certain people from their community, but that's okay. But we all are, that's what we want. We want what's good for ourselves, our families, our friends, our communities. So that's great. We're all on the same page. It's just the details that need to be figured out. And doesn't that give you a beautiful feeling when you go, look, we don't need to be at each other's throats. We can take this as a kind of spiritual exercise from the universe where humanity, Mother Nature's ears and eyes, humanity, we are here to learn to listen, to learn to speak clearly, to learn to think and become aware and to solve these problems. And imagine if we can move things in a good direction through dialogue and love and empathy. That's just going to be mind-blowing and shocking, but it's going to be so amazing. We're going to feel so proud and so happy. Our kids are going to be so relaxed, like, oh, thank God. I didn't mention this at the time because I was too scared of it, but there's this real dark fear. This things I heard the grown-ups talking and it seemed something was wrong. And whew, thank God that's over. Like, isn't that going to be wonderful? So we should work for that. Now, so I'm running for local council. If you can support me, and I can get in, even if I can't get in, even if I just go raise awareness and stimulate debate, that's already a plus, right? So it's a win-win, and that's how I'm doing it. I'm here fully intending to win, right? But I fully intending, right, to fully empower myself to do that. I'm completely at peace with if I don't win, right? So I think, look, control what you can control, let go of what you can't, right? So, it's just, I think this is what we all need to do. Sometimes you want something really bad, but then you're afraid that you can't get it, and so you don't even try because you're afraid of the disappointment. It's like, let's just deal with the disappointment at once. As a wise man once said, no expectations, no disappointment. So, I don't have expectations here. I have intentions and I have discipline and devotion. And part of that is I'm not wasting any energy. I'm not leaving any resources on the table through resisting the universe or trying to control what's out of my control. So, bit of philosophy there, but I invite you to kind of apply that to yourself, to your own life, and go, yeah, okay, let's just do what will move us towards our goals, hopefully, and leave the rest up to the universe, right? So, or what did someone say? Oh, it's like, yeah, excitement, excellence, and equanimity. So basically, get excited about moving towards what you want, and excellence, do your best at it. Do your best at each little thing in the moment. And then equanimity, like, yeah, but whatever happens is fine. You know? So now, my issues. Okay, so the national issues. Then we'll get to the local, right? And 100. I want to be a true representative and problem solver for the people of Fingal, especially Hoth and Malahide, this area. But my family's from here. So my father was born in Hoth. My mum is from Killester originally, but she spent a lot of time in Hoth, lived with my dad in Hoth um, before they emigrated to Australia, where I was born and raised. I love Hoth. It's always been my heart center in Ireland. I always love Hoth, and whenever I have time, um, I will go and visit, just walk through the forest and over the hill of Hoth and kind of commune with nature here. And it's always been my spiritual home in Ireland. And my grandparents, so my grandfather, John McGlue, he worked on the railways here. So he was uh, born in Hoth. Yes, that's right, born in Hoth. Um, but he, and I'm pretty sure, or maybe moved here when. No, yeah, yeah, that's right, born in Hoth. And he worked on the tram line, and later on the CIE. Have his badge here. Erin Road, Erin, the railway at the just over by between Hoth and Sutton there, the railway crossing towards the beach. So he was managing that in his later years. But my grandmother Bridget McGlue, originally from Tibreradon. How do you say it? Tibreradon. Oh, I need to work on that. Anyway, um, Jan Vierig to me. I'll try harder. But yeah, so she lives in Bayside. So I have family here, blessed with family, and whatever. Okay, so I love this area, and I want to serve here. But the biggest issues for the local areas everywhere in Ireland are actually the national issues right now. And I guess that's always the case. So we need to be doing both things. I'm here. Let's say I get elected. I will be working as hard as I can to solve problems and make things as good as they can be in this beautiful area. But then, as soon as when the election comes, I will be passing that on. If I can get elected, I will be passing that on to someone trustworthy. You trust me and my judgment to do things. So part of that is, to trust me to have good judgment about a replacement through co-option. Um, and yeah, so the national issues, basically, it's about free speech, defending free speech. So no to the hate speech bill and, online services thing, like, I'll control what people say. Like we just as recently as COVID, a bunch of things which are now we know are true were called disinformation, misinformation, lies, and people getting very aggressive about it in some quarters, very defensive about their ideas, and vilifying people who resisted them, and said, "Well, that doesn't really make sense, does it?" But what if these laws were in place at that point? It's ugly. We don't want to have to risk these things. The law is meant to create buffers so that our society stays well clear of flashpoints like that. So free speech, defending, like, if so long as you're not advocating violence against someone, right? If you're not hurting someone, like violence, right? Not like hurting someone's feelings. Okay, come on, yeah, like you can't build a society around that, right? Um, so uh, that's our responsibility to be in control of our own emotions, and if people are disrespectful, they're going to be losers. People won't want to hang around them, so that they punish themselves. It takes care of itself. So, short of calling for violence, absolute free speech. We have the right to free speech, and that is how we solve problems. We discuss things, and we through adversarial communication, the onlookers can see, oh, what really makes sense, and the majority of people will, and history is proof of this, will gradually side more and more with what's real and what's true. There's an evolutionary pressure there where what's real, what's true, we need to know it to survive. So the humans who were bad at leaning towards the truth, they got wiped out a very long time ago. So this is an instinct we have towards truth, and it's through communication and free speech that we orient towards it. So free speech, defending free speech. Secondly, fair borders. Okay, so reasonable borders. Um, so not mass immigration. Like, yeah, bring in everyone. Like, no, look, there's economic, cultural, and even security problems with that, right? Even legal immigration, it needs to be controlled. Right now Ireland's in this like the shortage of school spaces, hospital beds, um, uh, just housing, of course. There's all these problems. Like we don't need a bunch more people coming in and putting more pressure on it. How are we going to solve the problem if we keep bringing in more people? Doesn't make sense. And we don't need it. We can, be self-sufficient. In fact, you don't need immigration at all for your economy. That's a falsity which is put forth quite often. Under the current situation, yeah, immigrants bring in, of course, they can bring in capital and skills, and that's great. Bring in new ideas, wonderful. Food, great. But if we didn't have this counterproductive taxation and regulation system of, basically crony capitalism, then Ireland would be able to do what we did, say, 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, where we were the pride and glory of Europe. We were very wealthy, the land of saints and scholars, the island of saints and scholars. So we had like gold, like furs, and we had like all the dyes, exotic dyes used for manuscripts. But the Ireland, it seems, was a very wealthy place um, without immigration. And so that plus modern technology, you know, what's why couldn't we do it that, right? But that, you know, so but immigration can bring many benefits. But the point is, even legal immigration, like we need now is the time to go. Okay, let's also for political reasons, just divisiveness. People, we need to get the community to rally around each other to to connect. So for economic pressures, take off those economic pressures. Culturally, like we don't want bless their souls, but if there's people coming from strict certain cultural backgrounds where they have certain views about homosexuals and women, for example, right? You don't want too many of them coming in too quickly because then they won't have the pressure, the social pressure to adapt and change their views. And no one likes changing, really. You have to make a conscious effort to do it. And so, especially people from a traditional kind of background like that, it's a very strong culturally embedded uh, ideology. So if we have people coming in from those backgrounds, you just practically, for the sake of gays, women, minorities, right, you have to make sure it's enough where they are adapting to the local culture of tolerance and open-mindedness, right? Um, and just in general, preserving the local culture. Gaeilge. You can't have mass immigration and hope that the percentage of people speaking Irish is going to increase. How many Ukrainians or Iranians or Nigerians do you think are interested in learning English and Irish at the same time while holding down a job and teaching their kids? And we got to be real, So there's trade-offs in politics, and I believe the Irish language should be revived. And it just so happens that most people, for various other reasons, immigration should be. We should find a middle ground where it's not too much. So, and security-wise, just the streets. I didn't realize this until recently, but there is a strong correlation between mass immigration in Europe and crime rates going up. Now, is that because you have a lot of traumatized people who have been in difficult situations and then suddenly they're in a new place and they need to try to do something to survive and they don't have the social network? Is that it? Is it poverty? Is it that you have these people and suddenly they're around people who look different, sound different, and maybe in some cases don't seem very friendly to them, and maybe these traumatized people from war zones or whatever, where they would be, even because of that trauma, more likely to kind of exploit their own neighbors in their own country. Suddenly they're in a place where everyone looks completely different, and maybe the tendency to dehumanize could be stronger there. Is that why? Um, who knows? But it is a fact, and now that's not to say every immigrant is a criminal. Obviously not. I'm an immigrant. I was born and raised in Australia. My parents are immigrants from Ireland to Australia. Now I'm a re-immigrant to Ireland, right? So, and so I'm not the typical immigrant, but still, like I understand there's many benefits. And I teach English. I mean, I'm in contact with countless people. They're beautiful people. I almost never meet people I don't like. And even then I'll treat them respectfully and try to encourage the best in them. But people, and there's so many people from all over the world in Ireland now, and they're contributing amazing things. But I think it's like, I think we're good. This is a good point where we're at. It's about, about a fifth of the population are foreign born. I don't think we need a quarter or, a third. Like, I don't think that's going to bring benefits. I think the real benefits are cool. Okay, now let's consolidate this. Let's integrate, let's learn from each other, and let's, you know, just kind of adapt to this and get this, Um, like, I think you need to digest. You can't just be eating all day. You got to let it digest. There's seasons to things. So I think that would be that point there. Um, and then, so for all these reasons, right? Like, we should have a reasonable immigration policy, not an open door policy, and especially with the asylum system, which is being there's so much evidence it's being exploited by, like, huge numbers of people who are economic migrants. They're doing what makes sense. Of course, anyone in their shoes would do that. Yeah, you get the best opportunity you can. Why not? Of course. But it's our own government is to blame there, unfortunately, for allowing this to happen. So it's not someone from wherever in the world who's coming here, from Georgia, and they're coming here when there's not in danger at home, but they lie and they say they are, to come in as an asylum seeker, and they chop their passport in two on the plane. Many accounts of this, it's recorded, and claim asylum. How did you get on the plane? If with no papers. Okay, so something happened to your papers. Um, that's understandable, and we don't need to get angry and hate these people. But we do need to get our government to take responsibility and start enforcing the law again. You want to enforce the TV license, but you don't want to enforce, what the laws of, immigration, and So, okay, balanced immigration, and finally, sovereignty. Okay, so free speech, borders, and sovereignty. Irish sovereignty. Don't just sign away our souls to the WHO. They did such a great job managing the coronavirus pandemic, didn't they? No, they did like the exact opposite of what they should have done. They should have like let a decentralized network of information flow connect the millions of doctors in the world to see what works, what doesn't work, become scientists, run experiments with off-label product medicines and see. And this is what they were doing, but in many cases they were being stifled by these central bureaucracies who seemingly had some other agenda, which happened to make them a lot of money. And is that a conscious thing, or is that just like weird human, shadow, kind of the things we hide from ourselves, just like working to your self-interest? I'll let you be the judge. Nonetheless, or like giving the EU power to, just manage our borders, or, more and more power to, look at the 2008 crisis where these huge corporations were bailed out by the Irish taxpayers, and the EU, seemingly kind of threatened, the ECB kind of threatened Ireland, be like, hey, if you want help out of this, you better play ball, accept those IMF loans. There's a trend toward Ireland losing our sovereignty. And look, our grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, on and on and on, bled for this. How do you like bleeding? I don't like bleeding. Like, I cut myself a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, I better stop that blood flow. Oh, it's still bleeding? Okay, that's slightly more serious. I need to really put some pressure and stop that bleeding. Our ancestors were bleeding like liters of blood, right? Like, violence is no joke. It's not nice, right? They died. They lost legs. They lost loved ones. They lost dreams. They lost their freedom. A heavy price has been paid on this island for freedom, and I think we have to take that seriously. And if we want to be partners and proper good friends to the EU and to whoever it is, if we want to be a good influence on the people at the WEF in Davos, or good influence on the people in Brussels, anywhere, then we need to be able to stand our own feet. A friend, you're no good to your friends if you don't know where you stand as an individual, if you're just floating in the breeze, right? So that's the national policies, right? Now, I got a little excited there, got a little bit carried away. Forgive me, please. So local issues I'm running for here. I did mention, of course, I just want to serve and help local people and really listen to people. But 5 issues I would articulate up front is preserving the traditional village feel of Howth. So there's a lot of high-rise developments going up around Howth, and the locals don't really want it. I believe the council voted against it and said no, no. And then, the planning board, national planning board, intervened and said, yeah, it's fine, be grand. So look, we need to do more to try to resist that kind of thing and, galvanize the public to, let's go, okay, the county council doesn't like this, and we're being interfered with by people higher up. So either say we're going to lead like a march of locals, we're going to march to the office of these planning people and say, hey, no, this isn't okay. There are many other places in Dublin where you can put high-rise apartments. It doesn't need to be right here in a place which is this ancient fishing village, vibe, and that's a big part of the tourism, big part of the way of life here for locals and visitors. So we don't want to rob us, everyone, or we don't want to rob anyone of that. Um, Meanwhile, there's so many areas, I don't know, near the airport or, over, wherever, like many parts of Dublin where people would be happy for the house prices to go up, and maybe that can help them, in their financial situation, or maybe other people wouldn't want the price of going up. But boosting the supply of homes in a place which isn't like a tiny fishing village, seems wise. There's so many places where it's flat land, and yeah, some big buildings like that isn't going to be out of character with the area. So let's do it there. The only reason not to do it there is because, well, you make more money selling them to Japanese investors or whatever who see pictures of Hoth and go, oh, wow, cool. Yeah, apartments there will sell for, go for a killing. So it's not all about money, right? We have to balance these things. Money's important, but not that important. Um, so preserving the traditional village feel of Hoth. Secondly, um, empowering local people, right? So, like basically, I said before, government is meant to make life easier for people, but instead it often makes it harder. You have to call someone, you send an email, no reply. You're trying to get these problems fixed. You have to go through mountains of paperwork just to fix up your home, which is your land. Um, and meanwhile, an alarm goes off somewhere, and it seems like it's the same alarm going off every few weeks, and somehow that never gets addressed. Uh, Filthy public areas, bins which aren't changed properly, or there's just a lack of bins, um, on and on. It just seems there's so many ways where we're disappointed with what we are getting. We're not getting bang for our buck. And I think I am an outsider. This is my first time getting involved in politics. And so I think, and I'm very friendly, very respectful, but also a little audacious. And, I like to be pretty direct and clear and communicate clearly. And so I'm not afraid to say, to be in the chamber in Fingal County Council and say, so we need to talk about this, and how can we improve this? And there's a reputation for some bad problems here. So that is empowering the locals, putting the local back in local government. Okay. Thirdly, so facility, well, just helping mothers. So creches, shortage of places in creches, like childcare centers. And so I think we can do something. Well, the county council should be looking into helping out in some way with that, whether it's through libraries, you organize, kind of quasi creche things through the library system, or whether it's, using some of that, ability to borrow money or whatever to kind of allow, more creches to open under specific kind of quasi, public-private partnerships, or whether it's just, petitioning, using the standing of being, we are the government, we are local government, we're part of the government, to kind of reach out in a way that civilians, can't, to normal people just can't, to get, talk to these government departments nationally, and kind of ask them to try to, see what we can do to improve this situation. Because, it's hard enough being a mother without these pressures. So that's very important. And as the birth rate goes down, and we need people, we need a society. If the population dwindles too much, it ends up being like Detroit. It's a negative cycle, this feedback loop of not enough people for an area, and so the services collapse, and then more people leave, and so it's obvious. Any society, we need people. So look, even on a very base economic level, we should be thinking about how to encourage motherhood. But even just on a spiritual level, of most of all on a spiritual level, they deserve it. They're amazing for our mums. Um, and also, I think other things like arranging more meetup groups in the area would be great. I think so. Every day, mothers can get out of the house and go meet up and do something. Making that more accessible, advertising it more. Um, I think also education campaigns on the benefits of home birth, which my daughter was born by home birth and went perfectly. And we want to do it again in future. And I think it was really mind blowing realizing that actually it's so safe. Look, everything involves risk, but it's like very safe, very healthy, and to me it seems like it's the number one best option. So things like this, helping mothers out in these various ways. More for mams, I say. Um, now, transport. So there's more and more people in the area, visitors, locals, and so parking spaces are getting more limited, and there's more traffic on the roads, hard to get around. So what can we do? Well, we can try to create more parking spaces if that's possible, but land is limited, and usually we want it for houses and things. So what I think the low hanging fruit here, which I'm advocating, is get in touch with the Department of Transport and use our standing as okay, we're the council and we're councillors to and maybe leverage some of our funds or do a quid pro quo kind of thing, whatever, to boost the reliability of buses and trains and the frequency, but especially the reliability. Like make sure the buses come. There's no ghost buses that just never rock up, and then people go, "Wow, I should have driven. Why do I take public transport?" Um, and just make there's so many, to be frank, ugly and dirty, but just ugly, even if they were clean, but ugly train stations and bus stops. Um, and you just don't feel that great when you walk through them. Compare that to walking along the street in Hoth. You go, oh wow, it's beautiful. All this sacred geometry flooding my consciousness. So beautifying, revamping, beautifying these train stations and bring in the pot plants, bring in the mosaic of local history on the wall, put a red brick wall with ivy growing over it instead of some thing that looks like a bunch of spears that used to have heads hanging on them, as a wall. So that I think making public transport a more beautiful and orderly experience, you're going to get a lot of visitors and even locals who just want to take public transport, for the climate too, or whatever, like for the environment, but yeah, but then that many locals who still want to drive, they will have spaces then, so everyone wins. More space for the drivers and people who want to take public transport, make it a really enjoyable experience, so they will do it all the time. Or okay, and then finally. We have just litter and just nature. There's a god awful amount of litter around in Ireland, and it's really shocking because our ancestors were nature lovers. They literally worshipped nature, and now you just walk around Ireland, especially Dublin, it seems, and it's just full of trash. And I've been up at the summit lookout in Hoth many times, and just this one time in particular, I remember like I picked up rubbish, put it in my pocket, and I wash my hands after, no problem, whatever. Just when I'm out in nature, I think this is the least I can do. And I used to live in Portobello, and I would go under the tree there where I'd meditate, and I'd always try to look for another piece of rubbish to pick up and take out, and that was my tithe that I'm paying to nature. My contribution that I put in the effort to just take about one piece, and that's all it takes. The one who moves a mountain starts by taking away small stones, and an ocean is just it can just be a drop in the ocean, but an ocean is just a multitude of drops. So if we all start doing this, we done. We can do it. And so I was once up at the summit there in Hoth, and I just went through on a rampage through the area and just picked up like an insane amount of trash, and you didn't notice it. It was just there. Oh, green, how beautiful, all this nature. Meanwhile, for the actual creatures living there full time, they're like, hey, humans, you left your stuff here. If I'm elected, I'm definitely going to organize walks through nature just to appreciate the area, and to clean up the area, and to do it in a joyful way. Like, oh, isn't this wonderful? Yeah, like just like drinking a cup of coffee is satisfying. Look, beautifying nature. Paying back what we've been given. Isn't this enjoyable? So these are some policies, right? Now, in the broad strokes, I like finding a middle ground and solving problems creatively. You can see some of these angles that are not your usual angle on things. Um, and also I have this awareness like that deep down, a lot of our problems come from government. I think the number one problem we have, I guess, is our own minds. Okay, like we need to evolve our consciousness, become more aware, and being able to just watch your thoughts and to question your thoughts and to not think you are your thoughts. You're not your mind. You are you, which is consciousness or the mystical, inexplicable. You can't put words on it. It's you. It's a very deep, beautiful thing, but it is like the witness of your thoughts and being able to witness those thoughts and treat it kind of like a secretary that's coming and going, and you can fire that secretary and get a different one if you want, and you know the CEO doesn't have to agree to everything that's put on his desk. He can go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. No, not that. No, not that. Not that. Do we have anything of this around? Go get me this. And so we need to evolve our consciousness. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I would highly recommend. Is a very direct book on that, but there's all kinds of books on this. But the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, there's a ton of books which get into this stuff. But so that's the number one thing. But I'd say probably number two is government. And that I think the solution to so many of our problems is the government should be smaller, but its government is too big, and that causes all these problems. And then we try to fix those problems with more government. And I think so many of the things where government is being very useful and being very helpful, it's the problems that are being fixed by government successfully were actually caused by another branch of government in most cases. And so I think really we need government for, we need police, courts, military, politicians, and bureaucrats. Um, we don't really need much more than that. And I think that's not my policy. Or let's bring in libertarianism to Fingal County Council. But I think long term, that's my perspective at this point. I'm open to changing my mind if logical arguments can be brought that kind of should sway me in a different direction. But I used to be very socialist, and I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for the socialists. I think we agree on the socialists think like, look, the government is there and it can raise money, and so we should be using the government to solve problems like that people have. Give a bit of money here, take a bit of money from there, put it over there. And I think I agree. Like what we have now is crony capitalism. It's basically socialism for the very wealthy, where if you're wealthy enough, basically you can avoid the taxes through various ways, and the regulations you can influence and lobby government to have the regulations suit you. For example, just if it's complicated enough, only very big companies can comply with it because you need an army of lawyers and accountants. So even forgetting the details of how you can kind of rig things to your advantage, just any very hyper-regulated society, it makes it much harder for small businesses to compete. It makes it very hard for some worker, some employer in a big company to leave the company with having saved up money for 10 years and to start their own company doing exactly what they were just doing. So there's all these people who could be starting their own competing businesses, which would drive down prices through competition, but they're not able to because there's too much regulation. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't want to get in trouble they fall afoul of the law. And so through, avoiding taxation and through, hyper regulated environment, there's these big companies who are, benefiting, and it's kind of creating sort of oligarchy situation where the middle class is getting smaller and smaller. But beyond that, there is also the socialism for basically socialism for the rich, where there's these grants, these no bid contracts. Yeah, we bring in these recycling machines. Isn't that great? Even though how much resources and energy and CO2 or whatever was used up creating these machines and factories with, it takes a lot of energy, and using them, the electricity to run them, and etc. The amount of time people have to go drive there to drop them off, whatever. But even apart from that, who's making these things, and what's their relationship to whoever made the decision to approve it? You have to be wondering. I don't want to demonize anyone, but there are, or who's building the houses, and are they the most cost-effective ones, or is that someone who's maybe a big donor to one of the parties? There's all these room for basically a little bit of corruption, or let's just call it non-ideal functioning, where you have the government, making it easier for big companies because there's a kind of relationship there where they provide a lot of funding for election campaigns. And just in general, the politicians want these big, powerful people on their side so that they can make it easier for them to run the country. It's a natural relationship. It's existed for, God only knows how long, thousands of years. Um, so socialism for big companies, both, your normal socialist and say a libertarian would agree, yeah, that's not good. That's not ideal. I would lean towards like small government and basically look, drop everyone's taxes by 80%. So all the workers of the world, all the middle class people, all the upper class people, everyone, 80% less tax. And then with all the money we're saving, which we don't have to give to the tax man, we can buy all the things which at the moment we need the government to give us. So the government needs all this money from taxes to give us stuff, but it has no money on its own. It just gets the money from us. And so, through direct taxation, through borrowing, which is future taxes to pay for it, and through inflation, through inflating the money supply, which is a hidden tax on us, it drives down immediately. The 10% more money they print drops the value of all of your savings by 10%. Is it just like that? Um, so they get their money from us. So instead of, okay, we give them our money, then they give it back to us through these programs, and often it's inefficient. There's cronyism going on. There's just waste, and there's innocent errors, and central planning cannot solve computational problems as well as a decentralized system of mutually voluntary trades, which is what free market capitalism is. You can't get my money unless you can give me something that's more valuable to me than this 50 euro note in my pocket, and vice versa to you. You're like, hey, I have 100 of these products. Your money is better to me. Oh, great. Likewise, I need that product and I have a bunch of this money. Here, let's trade. Both of us win. A whole network of millions of these transactions that can solve these problems much better than any bureaucratic office, no matter how well organized. Even some gigantic German one couldn't do it as well as the free market. Um, and so, just instead of giving the money to the government and then they give it back to us through these programs, libertarianism, like, or you could call it classical liberalism. So not like, oh yeah, drop the taxes for the rich, Thatcherism and Reaganism. No, no, that's not libertarianism. That's a misnomer. That is socialism for the rich, right? That's corporate crony capitalism. Um, we're not talking about that. I think what I'm saying is like almost everyone disagrees with that. The libertarians or classical liberals, we say small government, meaning decrease taxes by 80%, decrease regulations by 80%. So just make it really minimalist, just the regulations we need for a functioning system so everyone's safe and all that. But keep it simple so that, because if there's too much regulation, only huge companies can comply, and it raises prices because there's less competition, and it prevents many people from starting their own businesses, So it's better, we'll have a bigger middle class if there's less regulation. And so drop taxes and regulation and government spending by 80%. Because if you don't drop the government spending as well, then the government goes into debt. That's a big problem. We have to pay for it. But also it'll make it hard for people to start their own businesses if the government is providing these quote unquote free services, which we all have to pay for. But the thing is, if we aren't paying all our money in taxes, we keep that money. That's a huge pool of money, which now people go, ooh, a bunch of people have, a lot more money. They're keeping 80% more of their taxes. Okay. And the government are phasing out these services which they've been providing. So, okay, I'm going to go start a small clinic, or I'm going to go start a school, or I'm going to go start a bus network or whatever. And people want these things, and so they're going to pay for it. And through competition, the value is just going to be greater. The quality, the balance of quality and price is going to be more favorable through this decentralized system of competition, which creates your phone. You would really want the government making your phone. Is that going to be a better price and better value, quality than decentralized system of competition? No way. Your shoes. You want the government to make your shoes? No. But why do we let them do the healthcare, the roads, the education system? Now, I think this is a longer term thing, but just to explain, upfront where I stand, I think down the road, through dialogue, we have to talk about this. I'm not a dictator. I can't just make this happen, and I wouldn't do it anyway. I'd want people to come to this through dialogue. But I think we should transition towards that way, where smaller government, we just keep our money, and you can take care of yourself. You take care of your friends. You're overflowing with cash. You can just pay for things yourself, just like we do with everything else, right? And then the government, by not being all bloated and in your face all the time and causing problems, everyone's going to love the government. But oh, the police, the military, the judges, they all keep us safe. We love them. They're us. And I think that's going to be an amazing society when we don't have this divide of like, ugh, the government. What a bummer when your own country is divided in that sense. So, but now the socialists would say, "Whoa, Jamie, I agree with you that like the crony capitalism thing's not good, but just cutting taxes and everything, that's just going to hurt poor people." Now, I disagree with that. However, I think it will help poor people. However, I think a good intermediary step where I'd agree with the socialists is okay. Better than socialism for the rich would be socialism for the poor, right? And so, look, if we're going to have this system where there's socialism, the government's taxing us and then spending it, it's only fair that let's make creches free. Let's let everyone get free childcare, or let's programs, training programs. Yeah, free training programs where you can do this, and however, you have to pass an exam at the end, and if you don't pass it, you have to pay us back. So it's an agreement. You have to pay back the thing if you don't pass the exam, or whatever. Or maybe just okay, there's no exam. You do the thing, and it's free. There's all these ways we could be helping poor, and kind of middle class, working class people, but instead we're just giving all these benefits to the super wealthy, um, in no bid contracts to build this thing or to run this thing, and I think if we're going to be getting in the socialism game, it's only fair to take care of the less well off, and it's not going to increase costs that much really. Um, and we'll be helping people. And then, so I think that's one thing where, I could be persuaded to go, yeah, okay, let's bring in some things where we're using government money to do these socialist kind of programs to help people. But I think the long-term goal is like, um, just get rid of socialism for everyone, um, which is another way of saying bring freedom to everyone and just allow people, like you work, you keep the fruits of your labor. And the government will, can gradually transition into a more passive role where if someone really needs help, they'll step in and help them. But over time, as families heal and communities heal and we get wealthier again, which we will, um, and history has borne this out, like that free market capitalism pulled 1 billion people out of poverty in Asia, you know, just recently. It's what made the US very powerful is through, and it wasn't completely free market capitalism, but it was the most that we've had so far. And you had this massive social mobility where people from Europe went to America and their kids, you go there and you're a laborer and your kids are small business owners and your grandkids are university, graduates and great grandkids are running the country or whatever. And that was because you had this system where you keep what you earn, and you have to pay a little bit maybe, but the government is like, hey, you do you. We have a fierce system of competition, but it generates results for everyone. And so that's a longer story. We'll get into that later, but just to say, I think on if you're thinking about the Dole election and why you should vote for me, short term, it's like free speech, fair borders, full sovereignty, and being respectful. Yeah, okay, sure. Like we can be part of the EU, but we need to renegotiate certain things and like be, for one thing, opting out of the migration pact like Denmark has, and striking this balance where we're not being subservient, where we're being partners, not servants. Um, and where we can encourage the best out of the EU. So I'm not like against being participating in international things. I think my eyes are on the whole world. I have one eye on Ireland, one eye on the planet. I want to be a good influence for Mother Nature and the planet, and see this be so I can die going, look at this beautiful world, how things are moving in a good direction. And so I am an internationalist, but Ireland's my home. I love Australia. I was born in Australia. Australia's beautiful, but look, I resonate with Ireland, and this is where my people are from. Like, I love history, and I, I look, I'm my soul. I'm not just this body or whatever. But to the extent of the more human level, like I am Jamie, but I'm also the McGlues, and I'm also the Irish. But even just the McGlues, like my family have been here for like God only knows how long, very, very long time. And so that is me. I am a branch of that tree. So this is my home. And so this is my priority is Ireland. Um, but that is how I think the whole world can heal and move things in a good direction is when we properly take care of ourselves. So say people, moving to Ireland from all these other countries, ideally for them and for us, for everyone, yeah, there's always going to be some, adventurers who want to move in culture and et cetera. But most of the migration is because people, they don't want to do it, but they just don't see a better option because their home is just in a terrible situation. So what if we can get all the countries of the world to heal their own homes and to turn inwards, ultimately to your own body and your own mind, your own soul, and then your own family and your own community, your own city, your own country, your own world, and we can move things in a very good direction. It's very exciting. Um, and yeah, so but just to close that story about the socialism thing, I think say shout out to my mate Dave. I don't know if you want to listen to this, pal, but say he's I believe more along those lines. Like, yeah, tax the rich, use it to help the poor, or just distributing resources, using the government to be involved in the economy in a beneficial way. And I think that can be done where and it's better than what we have now if you use that engine of socialism, like intervening in the economy, use it in a wiser way where you're uplifting the people who are really struggling. And I think that is definitely progress. But I think we should kind of do that and then move towards even beyond that. Um, if we can't just go directly to what's beyond that, which is really empowering the poor and the middle class and the elite, everyone, by having a society of freedom and prosperity, and voluntary trade, voluntary connections where we can all be ourselves and you do your thing, and no one can force you to buy their product. No one can force you to give them tax, maybe a minimum just to maintain these basic systems. But where, imagine that world where, you know, basically you are free to work as much or as little as you want, and it's overflowing with opportunities because we're living in a system where this kind of parasitic relationship of this oligarchy is not preventing the mass of people from being as creative as they can be. And just finish that point, the people who are benefiting from the current arrangement, the minority of people who are connected to the crony capitalism thing, the cronies, shout out to the cronies. Often they're very hardworking, very intelligent people, very driven people, and this is just the milieu that they're in, and they're like, look, this is the situation. I'm not going to sit around and do nothing. I'm going to get ahead here, and this is just the way it is. I might not like it, but that's the way it is. But I think so. If we can rally around a message of empathy and love, where we don't demonize these people, we can try to invite everyone to the table and say, look, let's transform the system. So people who work hard, there'll still be this elite but it'll be a meritocratic elite, and we can allow everyone to kind of do their best and find their place, and it's going to be better for everyone. Just be across the board, more health, more happiness, more love. So Jamie McGlue, independent, running for Howth Malahide, Fingal County Council. If you're living in Fingal, please register to vote and then vote for me on June 7th. If you're living in Howth Malahide area, and if you're living in Fingal somewhere else, then I recommend you could vote for a candidate who you think has a similar message of trying to bring consciousness and love, but not wishful thinking, like, clear-headed thinking about, okay, how do we prevent government from just ballooning and taking over the society? And how do we use government to kind of solve our problems and just get things moving in a healthier direction? However we define that, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out together. But, and then, and if you know anyone who lives in Fingal, right, especially Howth Malahide, please share this video with them, talk to them, tell them, hey, there's a guy you might want to listen to. He makes a fair bit of sense, and yeah, please God, literally, please, wise universe, bless this enterprise. Um, yeah, I will step up to serve, and see, yeah, like this beautiful future that we is just dangling there like a juicy fruit waiting to be picked and tasted. Um, and so please do get on that. And I would finally just say, let's stick together. Okay, let's stick together with Jamie McGlue. And yeah, I think the basic message is that politics is important, whether you like it or not. It is affecting you always. And so it's really just, I think, when people realize um, that actually just tuning out and not being involved, that's exactly what the people exploiting you want, you know. And then, most people in the system are not thinking that way. They're just doing their thing. But there are people, I believe, who are exploiting, in an exploitative relationship with us, and intentionally they want power and money. There's always been people like that throughout history. It doesn't go away suddenly. It's like an archetype. It's part of our nature. And it's even within us to some extent. And a lot of us, if we were in their shoes, would do the same thing. Um, I hope I wouldn't, but I don't know. I haven't been in that situation. Would I overcome the temptation? I hope so. I don't know so. But so, it is in the interests of whoever is kind of oppressing you that you just tune out and think it's not cool to vote. And and look, like, you might think, oh, the whole thing's rigged. Like, yeah, I don't know. If it is, then we'll find out, right? But like, I think probably no. I think this is a system where people have been tuned out for a long time, and people have been hypnotized and brainwashed by certain ideas that don't really match up with reality very well. And so we have this opportunity to kind of awaken to a clearer perspective, and to go vote. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. June 7th, just go vote and register first. So voter.ie for Dublin, or check the register in general, and get registered ASAP because the deadline's very soon. And then June 7th, you can vote for yours truly or whoever makes sense to you, and we'll move things in a beautiful, glorious direction. Now, Buddha, anything to add? I want to say I love the people of the earth, and especially the Irish. Especially the Irish. Well, that's a little bit biased, Buddha. Oh, you love your family, so. Well, you love your. Okay, I'll stop putting on this accent. But I love the accent. It's so fun. Yeah, so that'll be it. If you have questions, comments, observations, please leave them for me here. And yep, thank you for your time. Goramila Marguiv, agus gach banach